All right. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good day. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me. My name's Steve, and here we have the AirMax 720 Saturns, and I'm going to tell you why these got to get shipped right back to Beaverton, at least for me. But before we get into that, let's go over the quick history here. It's a very abbreviated history because these AirMax 720s are brand new. The 720 Soul debuted February 1st of this month, and this silhouette here you're seeing is the first time we've seen this Satrn, or as I'm calling it, the Saturn. Our first colorway is called Motorsport, and if you're familiar with any kind of motorsport design, the bold yellows contrasting with the blacks, I mean, this is pretty much spot on as far as design goes, and there's a lot of cool features and little Easter eggs in this shoe that all kind of tie into the motorsport aesthetic. Now, the other tie-in here is that these shoes were released last week in anticipation of All-Star Weekend, which we are just wrapping up on this Sunday night as I'm recording this, and the All-Star Weekend, as you may know, was held in Charlotte. The reason why there is a motorsport theme with this shoe is because Charlotte and North Carolina have a great admiration for NASCAR and other forms of various motorsporting. So Nike decided to play off of that and time this release of the shoe with the All-Star Weekend like they do with a whole crap load of shoes that have been dropping over the course of this weekend. Now, to my knowledge, I haven't seen any other ones with the kind of motorsport motif that these shoes are displaying. So let's get into a couple of the cool things that I really like about this shoe. For starters, along the upper, you have this Air 720 logo print that runs as a stripe along almost the entirety of the upper. And if you didn't notice already, that's actually the zipper track. What I love about the two zippers that are on either sides of the shoe here is that when they are closed, you cannot see the zipper track. I mean, it looks like a clean stripe, almost just like a print. I think that's a really cool detail, and I think it gives the shoe a really high-end finished look. And the whole dynamic with the zippers, we're going to get into in a second, but just that right there, that kind of detail and that kind of finish on these shoes kind of denotes that $200 price point, and in my opinion, these shoes are on par with that price point. That's about where these shoes should be. I don't think Nike could really produce shoes like this for cheaper than that. Now let's talk about the zippers. Now there is a buckle with a caution tape like print that holds the two zippers together, and if you undo the buckle, you can then unzip both sides of the sneaker. And there's also a couple buttons that connect right where the heel loop is. You unbutton those, and then the whole front of the sneaker kind of lifts up, sort of like an exotic car, maybe a race car. So the whole front of the sneaker opens up, and that reveals the inner sock where you slide your foot into, and this is the way that you can get your feet into this sneaker. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail later about putting your foot into this sneaker, but this is the way that you can actually fit your foot in. It's very difficult to slide your foot into the sneaker with the zippers up and the buttons all buttoned up, unless of course you have the wrong size and you have a very small foot. Next up, we move on to the heel. And the heel has a lot of cool little details here. Of course, you got the Air 720 going along the bottom of the AirMax bubble. And that is a really cool logo, and I'm assuming may be one of the logos that they use on AirMax 720 models moving forward, or it could be just specifically for this pair, as it does kind of tie in with the whole motorsport motif. And right above that, you got some cool print denoting the PSI, and I don't know if that's accurate PSI for this AirMax bubble, but it says 18 to 22 PSI, which is the fill pressure that you usually see on tires. Obviously, this plays into motorsports, and that's why Nike has it on the heel. And right above that, you have a white plaque. It's one of the only solid white pieces on the shoe with a really cool Nike racing logo, and it really looks like the type of racing logo that the automotive companies would use for their racing divisions. And it's almost as if Nike had a racing division. That would be some of the branding that they would use. And I think there's even more branding. Yes, there is. On the tongue here, there's even more type of like race branding that you can see. And it's a really cool touch. I mean, if this is a one-off shoe and they don't use any of these logos moving forward, I think that's a really great attention to detail and great effort that Nike put into creating almost an entire branding scheme just for one shoe. Now, moving on to the heel, with the 720, I've always thought this shoe was a very futuristic looking shoe, and looking at just the heel of the shoe really makes me think that even more. It's got these long lines encircling the sole of the shoe. Kind of reminds me a little bit of tire tread, but it's still a little more organic shaped. In the middle, you've got a yellow grip pad, and then the AirMax printing along the middle of the heel of the shoe. And it's important to remember that this shoe is a casual sneaker. This is not a running sneaker, not a basketball sneaker. It is designed for casual use, and I believe what you lose in the performance aspect, in that this being just a casual sneaker, you gain in the presentation, because you get this really clear air bubble going through, and like I said, very futuristic, very innovative, very just plain cool. There's a lot of shoes out there, none of which are looking quite like this 720. And a lot of times when designers or sneaker companies really try to go outside the box with sneaker silhouettes and profiles, sometimes it just looks kind of crazy and it doesn't really work well. I think back to some of the chunky Alexander Wang Adidas shoes where, yeah, it was cool, but at the same time, it's not really realistic. I feel like these shoes accomplish a futuristic look, but with very realistic applications and wearability. Now, speaking of wearability, I tried putting these sneakers on. I opened it up all the way, slid my foot in, no problem, and then I had a bit of trouble zipping both sides. Matter of fact, I could only zip one side of the sneaker fully and only about 1/4 of the way on the other side of the sneaker, and it was a real hassle to even get the top buttons put back on. Now, I knew the shoe was a narrow sneaker. I could tell from the photos. I was like, well, you know, it's very narrow, but I've never in my life had a problem just getting a sneaker on my foot. I mean, I got a pretty average sized foot. I've never had an issue with any other Nike sneaker in the 20 plus years I've been wearing Nike sneakers. But for whatever reason, this shoe is just so narrow, I literally could not finish putting it on. Now, the process of putting the sneaker on is very cool. So if this shoe can fit your foot, it's a kind of a fun process to put the sneaker on. It's not a practical process. It's gonna take some time because you literally are unbuttoning and unzipping and zipping back up, and it kind of puts you in a mood of like you're suiting up with a racing boot, which is really cool, and I understand where Nike was going with the concept. However, the shoe is just too darn narrow for me, and that is why I've got to send it back. Otherwise, I'm pretty impressed with the sneaker. I have nothing but nice things to say about it, except for the fact that I literally can't wear it. So if you have a narrow foot, it's probably going to fit you. You're probably going to be happy with it. I'm a little bit flat-footed, but at the same time, I don't think my shoe size or my foot size is that abnormal. So I think the number of people that are going to be able to wear this shoe is going to be very limited, and maybe that is a demand of the design, a sacrifice Nike just had to make. But for me, as unfortunate as it is, I gotta send them back. All right, so that does it for me, guys. Thank you again for watching. This is the AirMax 720 Saturn Motorsports. They were just released last week for the NBA All-Star Weekend. And my next video will be on the Retro Air Jordan 6 Infrareds. I'm super, super excited for those to come in. They are on the way as we speak, and I will have that video up ASAP. As soon as they hit my doorstep, we're gonna be rocking. So stay tuned. Please hit the like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when the next video is dropping. I appreciate your time. Let me know what you think about these AirMax 720s in the comments. Did you buy them? Did you try them? Did you like them? Unfortunately for me, they gotta go. But I hope that they worked out for you if you're feeling the colorway. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Peace.